Hey friends, I'm going to do a longer video either later today or tomorrow reading the communications between Gypsy and the Bikers Against Child Abuse lady. However, I decided to go to the very bottom of the OG document because it had been a while since I'd done that and see what was there. And there is an email that's very relevant to what we've been talking about with the news article about Dr. Kenneth Feldman, who was sued by 5 families for accusing them of Munchausen by proxy and getting their children taken away, only to find out later, after the families had been bankrupted and all kinds of stuff trying to legally defend themselves and been separated from their children for a period, sometimes very long periods of time. Then they found out it was nothing. And we've been talking about how that was a bit of an epidemic in the early 2000s, late 90s, and we don't know exactly whether or not it still is. We think that that perception that Munchausen by proxy is just everywhere played into Gypsy getting the plea deal that she did. We've talked about the lady from the Take Care of Maya video, how terrible it was that she decided to unalive herself to prove that she wasn't having Munchausen by proxy and hurting her daughter or making things up. And to me, it is so, so very important to distinguish when talking about Munchausen by proxy. And let me say, y'all, again, I'm just putting this disclaimer out. I don't have, low self-esteem or anything, but I feel it's important to say and let everyone listening know I'm not a highly educated person. I was homeschooled. I went to college for 1 semester when I was 17, and I don't have any kind of medical education. So this is just my thoughts and surmisings on this. Anything that I say absolutely needs to be researched, taken with a grain of salt in your own opinions, because I'm just a person with a YouTube channel talking about something I care about. That's all I can say for myself. You know what I mean, y'all? So yeah, don't worry. I'm not saying that because I feel bad about myself or my education or I have low self-esteem or anything like that. It's not like that. It's just a disclaimer to make sure everyone listening knows that I'm not a professional. My opinions and thoughts on these can't be taken as a professional opinion. I'm just a person with concerns and a YouTube channel. Okay, so this email came inbound to Gypsy on December 13th, 2023, weeks before her release. Parts of it are hard to read. Parts of it I will need to censor for YouTube. Anyone who has gotten the OG doc or wants to go get the OG doc from Into the Weeds Google Drive, they have it posted in their community tab. You'll need to scroll down a little bit. It's on page 1090. That way, if you want to, you can read along the parts I'm censoring. I'm going to go ahead and give my usual disclaimer real quick. I'm not showing the emails because YouTube's AI flagged me for reuse content because the emails are so popular right now. So I'm trying to avoid that again. These emails were obtained through a Freedom of Information Act request under the Missouri Sunshine Law. All prisoner communications are subject to Freedom of Information Act request. Okay, inbound to Gypsy, December 13th, 2023. Kids need your voice. I am writing to you because my daughter Blank and I are currently living a nightmare. You and us have something in common. Doctors have failed us in different ways. A psychologist came to my custody hearing and diagnosed me with having Munchausen's by proxy without ever evaluating me and my daughter. She almost destroyed my life because she is selling her diagnosis to the highest bidding parent in custody cases. She almost caused me to lose my child, my job. I work as a pharmacy tech, and someone with Munchausen cannot have any medical license. My livelihood on almost sent me to jail. She called DCF on me and tried to get my child removed from me and told a full report of lies and even misrepresented herself to DCS. My ex husband hired her to testify as an expert witness in our case. The problem is she never performed any exam to reach any conclusions. DCF launched a full on investigation into my life for 2 months, and after 12 different entities picked apart our lives, they determined there was not a shred of evidence that suggests my daughter was a victim of Munchausen. Blank is not on any medication, only ever had tubes placed in her ears due to chronic ear infection. And when they were placing those tubes in her ears, they discovered her adenoids were causing 75% obstruction and went ahead and removed those. Other than that, she has just had your typical childhood illnesses like flu, RSV, etc. So, due to her having chronic ear infections, which was resolved with tubes put in her ears, And because I ate an Olive Garden salad the day before I went into preterm labor at 18 years old, apparently the dressing has castor oil in it, and that can cause preterm labor, which I did not know as there was no warning on it. They concluded from this that I have Munchausen. My ex-husband has had quite a few, at the time, minor victims. He molested and even admitted to in deposition, text message, and even in court, along with one of the victims testifying as well. This is the very thing what started my divorce and custody battle. I had awoken to him self-pleasure, completely naked, with his hand in the back of her diaper. But due to there being no evidence of penetration, and she had just turned 2 and could not talk, he, of course, did not admit to it, and I did not think to record this. They did nothing to him. But due to this doctor's diagnosis, I was not allowed the opportunity to speak, and the magistrate went ahead and did a ruling of 50-50, 7 days on and 7 days off, and handed my daughter over to this monster. Less than 6 weeks later, he reoffended and SA'd her and her 3-year-old cousin and even beat her with a belt. My daughter and I desperately need a voice like yours to help us and the other families that have been victimized by this doctor. There has to be a protocol put in place if there is a suspected Munchausen case and not just rip families apart based off one doctor's statement, which almost happened to me. At the same time, there should be a centralized database made for all kids and anyone with a proxy that all hospitals, doctor offices, urgent cares, etc., has to check at every visit that shows the reason for the visits and all the info provided and is centralized so this is accessible at every office. This would help prevent more cases like yours and prevent cases like mine from happening. You have a very strong and powerful voice with capabilities to make real positive change for ones that do not have a voice. I really need any type of assistance at all you may have to offer to help my situation. This doctor is selling these diagnoses and ripping families apart. I am writing to you to be the voice for the voiceless. We do not know how prevalent this illness is in parents and how many kids are suffering due to this. So, my idea would help shed some light on this issue, but establish a protocol to prevent families being ripped apart like my case almost was. I am still battling this as this doctor is still trying to push off and then it cuts off there. So, yeah, there's so much disturbing in there. We are going to just assume, for the purposes of this video and commentating on it, that this is a true email. That's impossible to know because we don't know who this is or have any way of verifying. And I don't want to research into this lady's life or anything if she's not public. So, for the purposes of commentating on this video, we just assume that this email is true. And if so, that's absolutely horrific and goes along with some of the articles that we've been reading. The addition of the other parent being someone who does SA is adds a horrifying extra context to it that wasn't there with the Dr. Kenneth Feldman families that were suing, that I know of anyway. I wonder about her idea for a centralized database, if that's something that's possible. I mean, it seems like a great idea, obviously, but I don't know a lot about the medical system and the reason why things like that are not in place. Sometimes there seems to be such an easy solution to very big problems, but then if you really dig in, we find out that the reason that easy solution has never been implemented is because under the surface, it's actually nowhere near that easy. And there's multiple barriers and reasons why it doesn't work. But I don't know if that's the case here. So if any of you have knowledge in the medical legal field, please tell me in the comments. I'm very curious. Is what she's suggesting a possibility? If it was a possibility, I wonder why when Gypsy did her little Munchausen's advocacy video, why she didn't mention a possibility like this. Or maybe I need to look back at that video and see if she did. Okay, so Gypsy responded the next day, December 14th, 2023. And, to her credit, she said all the right things and didn't ignore it or say no or anything like that. We didn't really see any follow up. And We've also seen her say, "Don't ask me to advocate," and advocacy was forced on me and stuff like that. And that takes on an extra petty, sinister coldness when we realize that it wasn't just networks in our families saying, "Hey, advocacy will make you look good." Desperate people reached out saying, "Listen, you've got this platform. There's a massive need here. Can you please help?" Is that who she's referring to? Advocacy was forced on me. Don't ask me to advocate. Like, oh, Lord, y'all. Okay, anyway, here's Gypsy's response. Hi, Blank. I am so sorry for what you're going through. I am set to be released in 2 weeks. In order for me to help even a little, is for me to know names and locations. What is the name of the doctor? Where are y'all living? Where does this doctor practice from? I can't promise you that me knowing any of this will help, but I have a huge TikTok following, and I can make a video discussing how there is an unbalance in regards to MBP. There is a story from out of Florida of a mother who committed unaliving to prove she did not have MBP and was not the cause of her daughter's illness. It is stories like yours and hers that make me so mad at these doctors. Either they didn't catch it at all, or they place this serious diagnosis on just anyone for anything. There needs to be a balance. Do you have paperwork from DFS visits that you would feel comfortable sharing with me as screenshots? If so, hold on to it for now. When I get out, I'll need it, not to show the public, but for my own research. Like I said, I am still finding my footing when it comes to advocacy. There is very little resources for me to pull from. So all I have is, like you said, my voice and a huge following. I'll do my best to bring light to this. Since I am getting released soon, I won't be using this email platform after the 27th. So my email is blank, and you can follow my social media. And then she gives her Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, and Facebook handles. So we don't know if maybe Gypsy did try continuing something behind the scenes, but I mean, this would have been the kind of thing to present to Kim Kardashian, in my opinion, instead of a flimsy, I want to do prison reform with you, when we all know that Gypsy has bragged about how her prison sentence was like being in a college dorm with a group of girls. So I pulled up the advocacy video Gypsy did back last year after her release. Let's take a look at it real quick.
Hey everyone, this is Gypsy. So I know it's been a crazy last 2 weeks. I had a documentary, I had an ebook, and I had to promote those projects that I'm super proud of. But now things are starting to settle down in my regular normal life. So I wanted to kind of bring things back to the point of why I'm on social media to begin with. So the whole point is to spread awareness about Munchausen syndrome by proxy. So if you know my story, you're kind of familiar with a little bit about it. But what I want to share with you is the definition and symptoms to look for. So Munchausen syndrome by proxy, or Munchausen by proxy, is a psychological disorder marked by attention-seeking behavior by a caregiver through those who are in their care. Munchausen by proxy is a relatively rare behavioral disorder. It affects a primary caregiver, often the mother. The person with Munchausen by proxy gains attention by seeking medical help for made-up symptoms of the child in their care. As a healthcare provider, strive to identify what causes the child's symptoms. The deliberate actions of the parent or caregiver can often make symptoms worse. So here are some warning signs to kind of look for. Is a parent or caregiver, usually a mother, maybe a healthcare professional, is very friendly and cooperative with healthcare providers, appears quite concerned, some may seem overly concerned about their child, may suffer from Munchausen syndrome, a related disorder in which a person repeatedly acts as if they have a physical or mental illness when they are not really sick. The child has a history of many hospitalizations, often with strange set of symptoms. Worsening of the child's symptoms generally is reported by the parent and is not witnessed by a healthcare professional staff. The child's reported condition and symptoms do not agree with the results of tests. There may be more than one unusual illness or death of a child in the family. The child's condition improves in the hospital, but symptoms reoccur when they are at home. So these are things to look for. Keep in mind that there is a little bit of a gray area in this, because what I'm seeing is there seems to be this imbalance of the healthcare professionals not catching it all, or they are labeling innocent parents with this disorder. And so I watched a documentary recently called Take Care of Maya. And watching it, it made me upset on so many levels, because in that case they were too overzealous with wanting to put this disorder on a parent, when the parent was actually innocent. And for me, nobody caught it at all. So where does this balance begin? Let's have that conversation. So please post in my comments what you think needs to change in the healthcare system and how we can protect children from being medically abused. So go ahead and comment. Thank you.
Okay, so as we can see, she did say there has to be a balance, that she did mention the take care of Maya. But before that, she read off like a standard Google definition that, like I've been saying, feels like it could apply to any parent. Any parent with, a child that's actually sick with an undiagnosed disorder, a parent with anxiety, a parent with some hypochondriac tendencies, maybe even an attention seeking parent. Attention seeking, if it's not actually hurting someone, I don't understand why it's such a big deal. Like, now I get with Munchausen by proxy, if they're attention seeking medically and not actually hurting the child, they can still hurt their surrounding community. They can hurt the medical system that they're using to get the attention and stuff like that. But at the same time, throwing attention seeking out there as a sign to look for in a disorder that is considered so serious, it can have your children taken away immediately with just the suspicion. Attention seeking, like, my God. Every parent who does things like, I don't know, put their child in a contest or whatever could be considered attention seeking. Anyway, it just, yeah, it feels like a real problem. And I'm real curious to see if any of y'all know of any reasons why a database like the lady emailed to Gypsy couldn't be implemented. Because Gypsy didn't mention that at all. My assumption is that she probably run that by maybe like Mike Stanfield or something. He might have told her that's impossible and don't mention it. But we know Mike Stanfield's not a great lawyer. He thought for some reason that it would be like, I don't know, maybe an emotional plus to their side or something like that, to file Gypsy's lawsuit against Fancy and Chillicothe when none of them live in Chillicothe, and Missouri doesn't want anything to do with Gypsy, especially not whenever it comes to taking up resources of the community. And filing stuff that has to do with her in the courts takes up community resources and tax dollars. So they didn't want anything to do with that shit. That's why the judge dismissed it. So even if Mike Stanfield advised her against it, my point is that might still not be right. There, it could still be possible. I just don't know, and I don't trust me Googling it to actually make a real conclusion from. So if any of you actually have expertise in that area, please let me know. I'm very curious. So anyway, we'll go out with a palette cleanser. Fortunately, the little fawn that's been coming around visited my yard again yesterday. Those of you who saw my community post already know. So she gave me lots of good video footage for palette cleanser. I'll use a little here and some more later in case we have a rainy, dark day where I can't video and the cats aren't wanting to be influencers. Anyway, I hope y'all are having a great day, my friends.